Joanna Dolan with RMS Titanic Reflections, and joining me is Kipper.
Kipper of Fox Star Line.
We're joined by special guest Mark Chirnside.
Hello.
And this is a special edition of Deep Conversations and Liner Chat. We're just pleased to have Mark with us. You may know Mark from his books, and you may have also seen him on a few documentaries and television specials. We're just very happy that he's joining us today. We're going to let everybody kind of join in with us here, and we're going to let the live feed catch up to us. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask those in the comment section, and we'll be glad to pass those along to Mark. I'm trying to pull it up now. Okay. Mark, let's go ahead and get things started at the beginning. How did you actually become interested in ocean liners and Titanic and all things ship related? Did you just wake up one morning and just say, oh, like ships? What happened here?
Well, thanks for inviting me here. It's great to be with you all. Well, I mentioned just before the meeting started, I live about as far from the sea as you can get in the UK. I think it was probably 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. I remember we had a school project about Titanic, which I guess was a pretty good theme, and it was something that interested me. And I think not too long afterwards, there was a book fair at school. There was quite a few teachers who were really keen, you know, to get us reading, and I was always a keen reader. And they had one of the books, I think it was the children's companion book. So I think it was called Exploring the Titanic, and the main book was Discovery of the Titanic, you know, and they both got all the Ken Marshall paintings of the ship and the wreck. Yeah, I got that, and I don't think it was too long afterwards that A Night to Remember was shown on TV. I recorded it and watched it a few times, and then in turn it wasn't too long after that the Cameron film came out, and of course Titanic was everywhere, you know, on the TV, news articles and so on. So my interest was growing, and kind of from there. So on my dad's side, my family are from Liverpool, so it was obviously a maritime link there. And I remember going around the Merseyside Maritime Museum, and it got to a point I just started thinking, well, actually, you know, why didn't I start doing my own research? And I then got interested in Olympic, you know, which is obviously a ship that started life identical to Titanic, or rather I should say Titanic started life identical to Olympic. And one ship had a really long, successful career, and the other was just the victim of extremely bad luck, and, you know, it's just synonymous with catastrophe. So it kind of grew from there, really. I was researching the sister ships, and I got interested in Britannic as well. And I find that you understand Titanic a lot better when you understand the sister ships. And in turn, I always feel we do these things the wrong way around, because it was only in later years I got more interest in other White Star ships like the Big Four and also Oceanic. And again, it's when you understand Oceanic, when you understand the Big Four, you get a much better understanding of the years leading up to Olympic, Titanic, Britannic. So yeah, I kind of feel we do these things the wrong way around, and I in hindsight it would have been much better to learn about the oceanic, the big four, and so on first. But you know, we're here, so.
It's funny that you mentioned the oceanic, because a lot of people tend to say that she is like the mini Olympic. She was like the first version of Olympic. I think what they were doing is saying what designs they could try on these new ships, and the oceanic, with her beautiful big funnels, it worked for her. Not a lot of ships, you know, can pull off huge funnels like that, but the oceanic did.
Yeah, yeah, she was a stunning ship, and you know, her profile, you can just see the similarities with Olympic. And of course, Oceanic was originally going to have a sister ship, and the name for the sister ship was going to be Olympic. So if that had happened, then of course, I guess the Olympic we're talking about would have needed to have a different name. But you know, that was only cancelled, I think, in 1902. So you know, it wasn't that long before White Star started thinking about ordering Olympic and Titanic. So yeah.
I do have a question for you.
Was this your first? I'm sorry. Was this your first book?
That is it. Yeah, that is it. Definitely. It's the same. It's the same cover. I can't remember if it. I don't know if that's a hardback. I think the one I had.
This is my paperback. I have the hardback edition too.
Yeah, that's the same. It's the same cover. I remember the painting and the words at the bottom, and also the painting of the stern and the, you know, the submersible at the stern. So
this was my first Titanic book, and this one goes to school with me when I substitute teach. I like to show it to all the little kids. They were fascinated with it. Yeah, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of neat that we shared the same kind of like first Titanic book.
Yes,
I'm probably a lot older than you.
I don't know when it came out, and I guess there've been different editions as well. But yeah.
Oh yeah, this one.
I think pitched just right. I don't know what age it is actually. I mean, I know it's a children's book.
This was first published in 1988.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's probably when I got mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was a fair bit later. I think it was mid 90s. Yeah. But possibly the same book. Yeah, if they just kept reprinting it.
All right, Kip, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in there. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
there's a rumor that's been going on for years that the original name for the Britannic was Gigantic. I am half and half on that. I don't know. They say they have documentation, and then they say, no, that's fake. What's your take on that one?
Oh, well, how long have you got?
Just jump right into the controversy.
Well, I think I guess there's various claims about it. I mean, one of the common ones is that Britannic was going to be called Gigantic, and that after the Titanic disaster, they thought the name Gigantic was just too grand, too pretentious. I mean, and probably out of date, actually, because, of course, the third sister ship wasn't the largest in the world, even though Olympic and Titanic were, because the German ships came along from 1913-14 and they were larger. So I suppose you wouldn't want to call a ship that's not the largest in the world Gigantic. I think it was one of those things that kind of took on a life of its own. There was certainly loads of press speculation and reports that the ship was going to be called Gigantic. But then some of these reports said that the ship was going to be 1,000 feet long and have a golf course and all sorts of things.
Don't remember that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was one that I got really annoyed actually at J. Bruce Ismay, because he wrote a letter late in 1911, I think it was late November or December, to the head of the German Hamburg America line, Albert Ballin. And he referred to the press reports, about White Star's new ship. And, oh, sorry, I got an alert popping up there on the screen. He basically said he'd seen the press reports saying the ship was going to be 1,000 feet long, and none of the dimensions given were accurate. And it just annoyed me, because I thought, well, if he'd commented on the name as well, You know, he could have just said as a throwaway comment, oh, and we're not using the name gigantic either. Then it would have been good. But I think in terms of primary sources, the Harland and Wolff order book recorded all of the orders for hundreds of ships that Harland and Wolff built over the years. And it has number 433, so Britannic's yard number, and it's got the name Britannic written in. And it's not been crossed out or anything, so it's not been amended. And it has the dates that the ship was ordered. So June 28th, 1911, which was the same day Olympic left New York on the eastbound leg of her maiden voyage. Harland and Wolff instructed the shipyard and engine works to proceed with all the preparations for building the ship, because she was going to be laid down in November. And this book has also got the entries of the ship's dimensions. And there are some amendments to some of her specifications that are dated, for example, January 1912. They enlarged the boilers. And there's also an amendment. They amended the width of the ship. So she was the same length as her sisters, which is contrary to myth. She was exactly the same length. But she was originally ordered, she was going to be the same width as well. But by October 1911, they decided to make the ship a little wider, and that's amended in the order book. So it looks like the entry in the order book is dated to before the keel was laid. And as such, it's only got the name Britannic. I think that's about as definitive as we're going to get. There is also an entry in a chain and anchor order book for Hingley's, and that is from February 1912, so it's a couple of months after the keel was laid, and that does have the name Gigantic, and the name is then crossed out and it says Britannic, and you know that is a primary source as well. So it starts to get a bit tricky. It does make you wonder where they got the name Gigantic from, because we can speculate whoever was filling in the order book, maybe they got it from press reports or something, but we don't know where they got it from. I think the name Gigantic was certainly being used informally, and it very much took on a life of its own even before the disaster, but I don't think it was ever chosen officially as the ship's name. I think that once they'd chosen a name, it was simply the name Britannic. I think it was the name Britannic by the time the keel was laid down in November 1911. They were, however, a bit lax in terms of reserving the name, because the name Britannic was actually only reserved, I think it was May 1912. The late Jack Eaton had found a reference. That's when White Star had reserved the name. And it was also May 1912 that Bruce Ismay wrote some letters to various newspapers. It was produced in at least one anyway. And it said the White Star Line never had any intention of calling the ship Gigantic. And of course, people tend to discount that because it was after the disaster, and it's kind of this feeling, oh, we would say that, wouldn't he? But if we basically accept that newspaper reports can be so unreliable, I think the Harland and Wolff order book is the best primary source, and that therefore takes precedence over the Hingley order, chain and anchor order book, which has the name Gigantic. So yeah, I think Britannic was the only name that was ever officially chosen. At the same time, I think the Gigantic thing just took on a life of its own even before the disaster. So it was certainly very widespread. But you know, even today, there are people that absolutely insist it was going to be called Gigantic, and you know, there isn't. We don't have the evidence for that, so we have to go with the Harland and Wolff documentation, I think.
Good answer. That's a really good answer.
That was really informative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Um,
But that'll put that controversy to rest.
Well, you'd hope. I mean, I don't know. The thing with Titanic as a subject is there's so many myths that you'd think had been, you know, laid to rest
definitely.
even
That's a
decades
very good
ago, and they
question.
just keep getting, you know, repeated, regurgitated. Or you go on Wikipedia and think, no, someone's put, someone's put that. Or you know, someone has corrected it, and then someone else has uncorrected it, or something.
I love Wikipedia.
Yes.
I know.
You know, it's one of those things. If you've got low blood pressure,
Wow.
just go on Wikipedia, and you know it can get you.
Trust me, I know that one.
It's just.
So I want to mention your website. You have this fantastic website. I actually went out there and subscribed to it last night. And it has, like, I was looking at it, it has like basically a section for each one of your books. And it talks about what each one is about. And then it references each book that you've contributed to. It just has a wealth of information. It's just really fascinating. It's Mark Chirnside. Wait a minute. Okay, what is it? Mark? If you go Google Mark Chirnside's reception room, you can find it. I know from the U.S. it's a little bit different. Like if I can't just go and enter in the actual www, I have to like Google it because I'm in the U.S.
Okay.
It has a different. It's not like a .com. It's like .co.uk.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I think you can probably get through it if you get onto it if you use .com as well, because I think that forwards you to it.
Okay.
But yeah, certainly if you use www.markchirnside.co.uk, then that's the main page. It'll get you there.
But if you guys go out there and look for it, it's markchirnside.co. If you type like you said, .co.uk. But it's just a fascinating website. I want to refer you guys to that. Now, Mark, can you order your books from there, or will you be able to in the future?
Oh, please, yeah. Yeah, we'll order as many as you like.
I'm ordering one right after this podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'll get off this, and hopefully there'll be a rush of orders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can order signed copies. So you know, if you just want a signature, or if you want a personal inscription, I can, you know, sign it to someone. So that's no problem. And it's just been updated actually. So there's a couple of books that are out of print, but all the ones that are available, it says on there. And you know, you can pay on PayPal. It's got various shipping options. So you just select where you are, and it adds postage on. And you know, that's for UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Anyone anywhere else, I'll ship there as well. I just need to work out what
ship there.
So
anywhere. So we were talking earlier. I want Olympic Titanic Britannic. Is that what it is that I want? The big one.
The really big detailed one. Yeah. It's about an inch thick.
I'm getting that one.
I did once try to sell it to someone as a doorstop, because I thought, you know, it's a nice heavy book. Because you know, when you've got you know, there's a bookstall and looking through them all, and I'm thinking, well, he's doing a lot of looking, but he's not buying. And he just said, oh, you know, it's a bit too much information. I tried to say, well, you could have it as a bookstop, sorry, as a doorstop, but that didn't persuade him either. So he didn't make a sale, sadly.
So you said that one's going to be available again pretty soon.
Yeah, it's been reprinted. So I've had the first copies coming through to me this week. I've got some more on order. So so yeah, came out. That was the revised edition. Came out 2011, and it was reprinted, I think, after just a couple of weeks. But last few years, it's been out of print and hard to get. So
yes, I know.
Yeah, I'm quite glad. I always make the mistake. I never keep a copy for myself. So whenever it gets out of print, I find actually I haven't got my own copy of the book. So I've been
So will
able
you
to
let us know on your Facebook page, the Mark Chirnside's reception room Facebook page, that it's available, or yeah?
Oh yeah, there's a link on there as well, yeah, and some
Okay.
photos. So anyone's interested.
So all of us in the US who got the stimulus money.
Yeah.
It's good timing, isn't it? Yeah, your stimulus checks or whatever they are.
The big book is going to be available soon.
I'm getting the Aquitania one too. That's another one I want to get.
That's very good timing. But anyway, Mark, do you have a favorite ship? You've written about so many ships and you have so many lovely books. Do you have a favorite one that you've written about, or is it always Titanic? For me, it's always Titanic. But what is it for you?
It would probably be. I think Olympic would be my favorite, definitely.
Hey, this is my wife.
Well, it's kind of it's a bit of a difficult, because Britannic is probably second favorite, but in the sense of if she'd been completed as designed, so it kind of the ship that never happened, because she was a hospital ship, and all the fine interiors, and that was just not really realized. I do have a soft spot for Oceanic as well, and to be honest, it amazed me. No one had really written a book about Oceanic in terms of her career. So there's a great book by I think the gentleman's name was Simon Martin. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago. I think 4 or 5 years ago he passed on, and he'd written a great book about the wreck and diving the wreck and some of the salvage expeditions, but there hadn't really been one that covered her career in detail. And maybe she's overlooked because she didn't have any sisters. She's just one of a kind, but then that's also a bit of an attraction. It's something unique, something special. And she had 14 years of commercial service. I mean, Olympic only had 18 if we basically take out the war years and all the time she spent being refitted. So Oceanic, she did have that career which is just overlooked.
So Mark, have you ever been on a deep sea expedition?
I haven't. I have been to the wreck site, the wreck of Britannic. Oh. And we were in a small boat directly above the ship, and was looking down into the sea. Sadly, couldn't see anything. The sea there is just this really magnificent, really deep blue. You can see it in the Ken Marshall paintings, but even then it doesn't compare to actually being at the wreck site. It's just a really beautiful part of the world, and of course you can see the land so tantalizingly close, and of course we were effectively, because Britannic is on her side, we were effectively off Britannic's port side, and I think I'm right in saying it's 120 meters is the depth of the sea. So if we convert it, Britannic's probably around 30 meters, so probably talking 90 meters or so away from Britannic, just off the port side. So that close to the ship, and you just can't see her, can't make anything out. We're at the site, but didn't get the pleasure of actually seeing the ship. But it was great to be there. It was the 100th. It was nearly the 100th anniversary. It was a bit earlier. I think it was early October that we were actually there. That was great to be there, and it's just great to see where Britannic is, and it's just amazing. The shoreline looks so close. It's just tantalizingly close, and you just really think, well, I'm sure if you had to swim ashore or something, it would be much further than it looks. you know, rather like anyone that was on Lusitania. But there you go.
I bet that was really fascinating. Just being that close to the wreck. So you can actually see it then if you're on the boat on the surface? Can you actually see the wreck from the surface?
No, sadly. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I mean, is it maybe better if you're in an airplane or something? I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, we were looking. We were just looking overboard, and you know, it's just this beautiful deep blue sea. Mm-hmm. So the colour's great, but you mm-hmm. just can't see. Mm-hmm. And of course, for people diving the wreck, I think you're the best part of the way down there before the ship starts to materialize, and you can actually see her. So yeah, you're tantalizingly close.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can't see anything. So.
Are you adventurous? Do you think you'd ever go on a deep sea dive if you're given the opportunity? If someone asked you to just hop on a sub and go down to Titanic sometime, would you?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think I'd prefer Britannic actually, but yeah.
Really?
I think so. It's be a great adventure.
Yeah.
But then there's so many other people that can maybe contribute more, because if they see the wreck of Titanic up close. So I don't know. I'd almost feel a bit guilty, because it's like you're taking a place that someone else might be able to use. Because there's obviously limited resources. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if I won't be a hypocrite. If I was given the chance, I'd visit the wreck. But yeah, I think I would. I think it'd be Britannic that I'd prefer. And not just because you don't spend hours just descending. She's much shallower waters, and I guess you'd have more time, and you get to see her better. And Britannic, she's basically intact. Mm-hmm. There's obviously the damage at the bow, but even though she's on her side, she just looks remarkably good. I mean, this ship, done all sorts of scans over the years, and she basically seems to retain a full width. These ships, they're not designed to lie on their side. The whole design is, they're designed to float upright. And yet she's on her side. We've had some very brave divers go in and actually seen the forward boiler rooms, and the boilers, these more than 100-ton boilers are still there in place, even though the ship's on its side. And there's a fireman's wheelbarrow or trimmer's wheelbarrow wedged between some of them. Just a remarkable feat of engineering, really. And I know conditions at the wreck site have a lot to do with it. So things like currents, temperature, and all the sort of sea life. But it's just striking if you compare Britannic to the wreck of the Lusitania, which is basically just collapsed and pancaked. Or more recently, there's the Andrea Doria, which I think is a similar depth to Britannic. I don't know, I assume she's affected by strong currents or something, I'm not sure. And she sank in 1956, I think it was. And yet she's collapsing. The superstructure midships has gone. Apparently there's some damage or collapse at the bow. And that's really accelerated recently. Whereas Britannic, she really doesn't look any different today than she did when she was imaged in detail in 1995, or even when she was discovered in 1976. She's just there, doesn't really seem to change. So it's just a remarkable thing, really.
So you actually wrote a book about the hawk. Is that the hawk that rammed into the Olympic, or the?
Yeah. So, well, I can't take all the credit. It was with Sam Halpern, who,
yeah, I see that,
co-author, and we basically went over all of the inquiries after the collision. There was a naval inquiry, and then White Star basically sued the Navy, and then the Navy sued White Star. So it was actually a court case rather than an inquiry in the formal sense, but it was effectively an inquiry in the sense that everyone was questioned, and it's a familiar list of people. So you've got Captain Smith, you've got First Officer Murdoch, and others that are all on Olympic. And yeah, it was a really impressive amount of information we were able to find. I was really pleased with it, and I wrote mostly about the legal side of things and the court case, and Sam did a lot of the mathematical and the navigational analysis. So trying to say, well, actually, whose fault was it? But of course, it was a really contentious case because White Star never accepted that Olympic was in the wrong. They always thought it was the Hawk, the Navy cruiser, that was at fault, and they appealed repeatedly, and it worked its way up the courts in the UK to the House of Lords, which was then basically the Supreme Court of the UK in 1914, and White Star's final appeal didn't succeed. But it was a very odd one because in 1911, there was a defence in UK law of compulsory pilotage. So Captain Smith was obviously the captain of Olympic, but he wasn't navigating the Olympic. She was in pilotage waters. There was a compulsory pilot on board, George Bowyer, and it was him who was giving all the instructions. So, the helm orders, engine orders, everything to do with the navigation. So even though Olympic was held to blame and White Star wanted to clear their ship entirely, actually under UK law, they employed the defence of compulsory pilotage, and that succeeded. So, Smith wasn't held to blame in any legal sense, but it was a fairly contentious point of law. Even back in 1911, they'd been talking about changing the law, and it was changed, I think, in 1913. So that defence isn't open to anyone today. But I mean, it wasn't absolute. I mean, the captain still had a responsibility, and he had to make sure that his crew carried out the pilot's orders. But yeah, the pilot was navigating the ship, and he was basically the one that got blamed.
Wow. Is that literally like the only book out there about the Hawk? I don't think I've ever seen another Hawk book ever.
I don't think there's been any other books. There was a book, I think it was called The Agony of Collisions.
Okay.
I think, was it Peter Padfield? I hope I've got the name right. Which did have a chapter on the Olympic Hawk collision.
Okay.
But I think it covered quite a lot of different collisions over the years. So I think this is, the only detailed book. And we wanted to kind of go into detail, really, because we think if someone's that interested in the collision that they're buying a book about it, we want to include all the information we could.
Yeah. So
it's more of a monograph, really, and we published it. It was privately printed just so. So
you kind of mentioned it. You worked on that book with Sam Halpern, and then you have like a whole section books on your website that you kind of collaborated with or contributed to or wrote forwards to. Who was your favorite co-author to work with, or what book is like your favorite collaboration?
Oh,
I don't want to get you in trouble here, but you had to have a favorite.
You know, this has reminded me actually, because I'm sure that page is out of date, and I probably need to add a load of books to it since, you know, for the last couple of years anyway. I think, well, I suppose it would be the book, The Centennial Reappraisal.
Okay.
And although, I mean, I just contributed a small part to it really, but, you know, mostly writing about the changes to Olympic and Britannic after the Titanic disaster. So actually there wasn't really that much in the way of collaboration. It was just, you know, I wrote my section, sent it in, and then it was all assembled. But I just found that a really good example of where you can get people with different areas of expertise. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a subject like Titanic, it's just absolutely massive. And the people that know the technical details, there are people that know all the passengers on board and the crew and their stories. You've got people that have researched the inquiries in great detail. So you've just got different people with different areas of expertise. And it was just so good to be able to bring that all together. Because by collaborating, it just produced something that was so much better than, you know, if any one of us individually had tried to do it on our own. And I think the concept was quite good, kind of the idea of, you know, almost following in a way, sort of the format of Mersey and his report, but doing it today or then, at least for 2012, with all the information that we've got that they didn't have in 1912. So, you know, they didn't even know the exact location of the ship, because of course it turned out to be about 13 miles out. They didn't know the ship had broken apart. There was so many things that the original inquiry wasn't aware of. So it was just a great thing to do. But yeah, I think Sam was basically the lead, and I think he needed to take credit, because just coordinating, it's great to collaborate, but when you're coordinating a number of people, you know, it does complicate things. So
well, that's great. And what's the name of the book again? Centennial?
Oh goodness. I think it was called Report into the Loss of SS Titanic.
Oh, that's it. I saw it on the
appraisal. Yeah.
Where is it? Yep. Report into the loss of the SS Titanic, a centennial appraisal.
Yeah. There were some reviewers that.
Yeah, a lot of you guys contributed to that one. Let's see, George Behe, Bruce Beveridge, you, Tad Fitch, Steve Hall, a whole bunch of you guys. Bill Wormstead.
We did get criticised because I think it was, you know, potential readers said, "Oh, it shouldn't be the SS Titanic; it should be the RMS." So they don't know.
I was going to ask about that.
I went by both.
Yeah, it can be either. I mean, both are accurate.
Royal Mail steamer.
Yeah, but I thought, well, that's a bit of a shame, because we've lost at least one person just because they don't like the title. But I don't know if they like the cover, but I thought it was a nice cover.
It's lovely. There's nothing wrong with that. You just can't please everyone. That's what I've found out over the years. You just can't please everyone. I'm sure it's just a lovely book. I mean, okay.
I do have a question. I've seen you have a book on the Aquitania. I'm guessing she's one of your favorites.
I think she's my favorite Cunard ship. Yes. I'd probably say that, and kind of because it's tied into Olympic. because Cunard, basically, I think Cunard would pretty much have gone bankrupt. You know, if they hadn't had state aid, if they hadn't had the support from the government to build Lusitania and Mauritania, I think they would have declined and quite possibly gone bust. So that was really important for them that, you know, they had that, and Lusitania and Mauritania are a great success. But they then get wind, of course, that White Star is building, you know, Olympic and Titanic, and Cunard, they can't rely on the government this time for support. So they need to have a ship that will be a commercial success and that can succeed and make money without support from the state. And I think it was John Maxstone Graham, he basically said Aquitania was Cunard's White Star liner. It was basically their Olympic. Mm-hmm. And of course, the designer of Aquitania, Leonard Pescott, travelled on Olympic in 1911 and took all sorts of notes. And there are actually quite a few features from Olympic that were used on Aquitania because Pescott, you know, thought they worked well and liked the look of them. There were also some things about Olympic he didn't like, so he made a note not to do that on Aquitania. But yeah, I think Aquitania, she was basically Cunard's White Star liner. But I do have a soft spot for Mauritania as well. So,
when I think of Aquitania, like I said, she was the Cunard's White Star line version of Olympic. She was the answer to those because, like you said, they didn't have the extreme funds, you know, if they had to build them as speedy troop ships. So I said they were on their own with this one, and I think they wanted to go their own route instead of the government's route. Because last time they had to go what the government wanted, and this time Cunard said, okay, we already have 2 fast ships already in service. Let's just make one for luxury to counter White Star and try to steal some of their passengers by making our own Olympic.